There we go. So 9-Pound Hammer is a classic, or welcome again to the How to Play and Sing tutorial for 9-Pound Hammer. As I was saying, it's a classic folk song and originates from as a work song sung in the chain gangs and labor camps in the post-war South, and then has become a beloved folk song classic and certainly worked its way into the bluegrass banjo repertoire. It's a standard there, and pretty much anywhere in traditional American music. It's also a great one to learn playing and singing because it's pretty straightforward melodically and structurally. It's just one repeating melodic unit, even though the lyrics have kind of a verse and a refrain. The actual melody itself is just one unit that repeats. I just did put this out as a song of the week on the channel, so I will go ahead and play that so we all have the song in our heads and know what this is going to sound like. After that, I'm then going to walk through the process for how to go about playing and singing, starting simple and then building up to the arrangement that I have in the tab download that you'll find, Breakthrough Banjo course members you'll find inside of the vault. And I will walk through that as well. So here is the demonstration video of 9-Pound Hammer.
Well, 9-Pound Hammer, it's a little too heavy for my size, buddy, for my size. Roll on, buddy, why you roll so slow? How can I roll when the wheels won't go? It's a long way to Harlem, it's a long way to Hazard, just to get a little groove, just to get a little groove. Well, when I'm long gone, you can make my tombstone out of number 9 coal, out of number 9 coal. I'm going to the mountain just to see my baby, and I ain't coming back, no, I ain't coming back. There ain't one hammer down in this tunnel that can ring like mine, that can ring like mine. Well, a 9-Pound hammer, it's a little too heavy, buddy, for my size, buddy, for my size. Roll on, buddy, why you roll so slow? How can I roll when the wheels don't go?
Alright, so that's the song. That's what we're going to be learning. It is in the key of G, and we're playing this out of standard G tuning. So D on the 4th string, G on the 3rd, B on the 2nd, D on the 1st, G on the 5th, okay? And we have 3 chords we're going to be playing. You see at the top right of the screen there. The G major, which we can get with just the open strings of the banjo, which are tuned to a G major chord. We have the E minor, 2nd fret of the 4th string with middle finger, then the open 3rd, open 2nd, and then ring is on the 2nd fret of the 1st string. And then a D major, and I'm going to use when playing and singing, I'm going to use the partial D, open 4th, which is a D. Then the 2nd fret of the 3rd string with index, then 3rd fret of the 2nd string with ring, and then the open 1st, which actually gives you a D power chord kind of sound that works well for the vocal backup. Okay, so now let's move through the chord progression. Start there. That's what we want to learn first before we start playing and singing with ourselves. um, playing and singing along. All right, here we go. So let's move through this chord progression again. Like I said, it's one repeating melodic unit. So this is the full unit here that you see and that we're going to go through now. All right, so it goes like this. Well, a 9-pound hammer, G, is a little too E minor, heavy, buddy for my G size. D, buddy for my G size. Roll on, buddy, still on the G. Why you roll so E minor slow? How can I G slow D when the wheels won't go? All right, that's it. Now, you'll see there are two different picking patterns at the bottom of the screen. Those are kind of the two patterns that I recommend starting with when you're just getting started playing and singing. So just trying to figure out how to sing and do something different with your fingers at the same time. You want to start really simple, okay? So we'll cover these, and then I'll go through the arrangement for the vocal backup that I put in the tab download. All right, so the first pattern is just thumb pinch. So thumb on the inside 3rd and 4th strings, and then pinching with the thumb on the 5th and the middle on the 1st string. Or if you're playing this 2-finger thumb lead, you can pinch with the index. All right, so that would sound like this. I'll play it slow. Well, a 9-pound hammer is a little too heavy, buddy for my size, buddy for my size. Roll on, buddy, why you roll so slow? How can I roll when the wheels won't go? Now, one little thing I'm doing, you don't have to do this. I've talked about this in prior workshops. When I'm on the D chord, I like to start the pattern, I mean not the D chord, the G major, I like to start the pattern with that open G, which is the 3rd string, rather than the open 4th. So starting it with the root of the chord sounds a little better. You'll also end on the right note that way. All right, and then now let's do the second pattern, which sounds like this. So it's a thumb pinch, and then a little roll, sometimes called an inside-out roll or a square roll, but basically just so. And you'll hear playing it when I play it this way, it adds a lot more interest and gives it a more banjo-y sound. Well, a 9-pound hammer is a little too heavy, buddy for my size. My size. Roll on, buddy, why you roll so slow? How can I roll when the wheels won't go? So perfectly acceptable. You could do that always when you played and sing, and that would be just fine. Just mixing and matching those two patterns is really all you need. It's no different than a guitarist strumming while they sing. But if you want to take things up a little bit more, add a little bit extra interest, you can start kind of replicating what you're singing at times, so replicating the melody with when you're picking and changing the picking patterns just a little bit. So that's what the tab for the vocal backup has. I'm going to switch to that view now, and we'll walk through how that should sound. All right, off with my head. Okay, so let's walk through this tab, and if just like in prior workshops, I will use this blue box to show you what measure I'm working on. So I'll play each measure separately so you know how it sounds. And if there's any type of clarification I think that needs to be made, I will do so as well. So here's our first measure. It's our pickup, all on the 4th string. In our voice, we're going, well, a 9-pound. All right, and then this next measure starts the first full measure, which sounds like this. So slowly. Now, one thing I am doing here on this little hammer-on and pull-off, with my thumb, I'm only doing this. But But what I'm doing is hammering on, and then I'm actually pulling off that fourth string after I hit the fifth string. So I'm actually doing an alternate string pull off. All right. So one of the things that I like to do, especially when playing vocal backup fingerstyle, is borrow some of the techniques that are common in clawhammer banjo with these, with the fretting hand, which aren't used very often in fingerstyle banjo, though they should, because they open up additional possibilities. So once again, this measure. Now, if you didn't want to do that alternate string hammer on, you could just ignore that pull off. You could just ignore that fifth string and just play. So like this. But really not much difference to do that pull off. All right, this last measure up top we have like this. One more time. So again, if you're looking at the tab, you'll note that underneath there's a circled 2, which indicates that this is also a hammer-on here, an alternate string hammer-on. So I'm playing the open second, and then I'm hammering on to the second fret of the third. Again, I just find this is it lends itself more to sync playing and singing. There's less that you have to think about if you're primarily just using hammer-ons and pull-offs to kind of fill out the melody. But you could just play it like this, so playing it with your fingers, but I like to do the hammer on there. Alright, so again, sounds like this. So everything at the top of the screen sounds like this. And now singing it. Well, a 9-pound hammer, it's a little too. Also, you'll note in the video I play this with picks on. Here I'm leaving them off so that you can hear me when I talk and when I sing. All right, next measure, we're going to that E minor chord. Here's how this sounds. So again, I'm doing that alternate string hammer on. So I'm playing the open third, and then I'm hammering on to that E minor chord. And in doing so, getting that melody note, which is that second fret of the fourth string. So another alternate string hammer on. So that whole measure. And I'm leaving my finger on the E minor chord. Next measure. So again, this is allowing me to get some melody notes with only really just still fingering the chord shapes. So this measure again. Next measure, we're back on the open G. So straightforward. Last measure, we're moving to that D shape. So one more time slowly. So everything at the top of the screen sounds like this. Now with vocals, heavy, buddy for my size, buddy for my size. This last measure, where I'm doing that hammer on in the open fourth to the fourth fret, I'm singing, is replicating when I'm singing, buddy for my. All right, and then this next measure, we just have one melody note that starts it, and the rest is filler. The rest of the measure is filler. So we'll fill it with a Scruggs G lick, a Scruggs lick in the key that's over a G major chord. So it sounds like this. So one more time. All right, next measure. We're moving into the roll on, buddy. Next measure. Again, buddy. Next measure. A little slower. So here I'm doing another alternate string hammer on. After this open second, I'm hammering onto the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. So this whole measure slowly. So again, I'm playing that open 2nd with my thumb. I prefer when playing behind the voice to keep that thumb going on the downbeats always. It really helps to provide a nice backbone to sing against. So one more time that measure. All right, so now everything at the top of the screen sounds like this. With vocals, sighs, roll on, buddy, why roll so? All right, next measure, doing that E minor again, slow. Same as we did before. Hammering onto that E minor shape after playing the open 3rd string. Next measure, as before. All right, back to the open G. There's our little picking pattern. Thumb pinch and a roll. Now back to the D like we did before. Slowly. All right. Everything at the top of the screen sounds like this. All right. With vocals, slow. How can I roll when the wheels won't? Last melody note. We have the open 3rd. Go. And then we just fill it. Fill that measure out. So once again. And again, you could play anything you want. So here, go. All right, so that's what we have. That is how the vocal backup that I've tabbed out would sound, and that's how it would sound behind your voice as well. Let me pause for any questions. And now I'm going to go ahead and just quickly go through the tab for the break. So this is the lead break that you'd play, that I played in the video, or a version of it. So typically you play and sing a verse and refrain, and then play a break, which is kind of the format I used in the video. Okay, so here is the tab for the break. You'll notice it's similar to what I did with the vocal backup, but it has a little bit more intricacy. So here's that pickup measure. Starting with a couple of pinches there. Now this first measure sounds like this. Once again. Next measure. One more time. Now to the E minor. One more time. Okay, so everything at the top of the screen sounds like this. All right, moving on, the next set of measures. We have this. How can I? Now we got this next measure. So it's roll. In Scruggs parlance, that would be called a forward reverse roll. Moving to the D major chord. One more time, a little slower. Last measure here, which is exactly what I did in the vocal backup. So everything at the top of the screen sounds like this. Let's do that one more time. All right. Next measure. Sorry. So we're going into the roll on, buddy. Again, it sounds like this. Now, so that's kind of an embellishment of the melody here, which is just going roll on. And you wouldn't want to necessarily do this when you're singing because it would be singing something different than what you're playing. So this is why this is something that you do in the break, but not necessarily in the vocal backup. It would actually not sound good. Next measure. One more time. Next measure. One more time. Next measure on the E minor. Just like earlier. Everything again at the top of the screen sounds like this. Next measure, still on the E minor chord. Next measure. A little slower. Back to the D major. One more time. Just like before. Now, the last melody note. And then we're just going to end with a fill. Except I'm going to remove that note. One more time. All right, everything at the top of the screen, and the last note is not pictured up there. It's just the open third. Okay, so everything at the top of the screen sounds like this. One more time. Let me make sure that's corrected. There we go. Because you're still in the E minor chord at that first measure. All right, that is how the one version of the break that I played in that video sounds. So that's it. That's 9 Pound Hammer. If you're watching this in the Banjo virtual classroom and as part of the Breakthrough Banjo course, and you have any questions about this, just ask it in the comment box at the bottom of the page, or if you have suggestions for other videos or other walkthroughs or playing and sing tutorials,